All right, welcome back to another episode of FOMOFanz. I'm your host, Brian Fanzo, and today we're going to talk influencer marketing, and more specifically, what brands of all sizes need to be doing a little bit differently when it comes to influencer marketing in 2018. But before we get to that, this is episode 61, and episode 60 was all about the Facebook news feed changes. And I was fired up. I went live with that episode just as the announcements came out. It's been now a little over a week and a half or so since that announcement came out. A lot of different information that's out there, a lot of craziness, some good, some bad, some overreaction, some underreaction. In my opinion, we still have a wait and see game. Since that recording of that episode of this podcast, I haven't, my news feed itself is kind of crazy. I see groups, I see all kinds of things, but I'm doing a lot of data research because I'm working with a team called team at Del Mundo to do some research on true analytics of what's changed over the last 30 days. I'm also doing some research on the word choices and what things we can start to leverage in our statuses so that we create those meaningful interactions. So stay tuned. That's actually leading up to a keynote that I will give at Social Media Marketing World at the end of the month. So if you're going to San Diego for Social Media Marketing World, you guys will see a brand new keynote that is focused all about the Facebook news feed. Going to use some data from some big brands and some media companies to hopefully bring some a different take on what's going on there. But we're going to talk a little bit about influencer marketing, and a little bit of it is influenced by the Facebook announcement, right? So one of the things that I talked about is that micro influencers are really going to take off. And really what a micro influencer is it's someone that is very influential, but doesn't have what would be traditionally the influencer numbers. And for those that are out there, maybe you're a small business, maybe you're an entrepreneur, maybe you work for a big brand, influencers and the value of influencers has been all over the map, right? The idea here is, and comes down to a basic principle, and definitely something that I talk about a lot on my content, on my keynote stages. I believe in 2018, one of the most powerful things a brand can do is they can focus on relatability. Relatability. Now, I don't even think that's a word. I think it's, I kind of make that word up. But relatability really just means, we buy from people we like, but we also buy from those that we can relate to and those that can relate to us as consumers. And influencers, for what I've always looked at is, influencers have a trust with an audience that a brand traditionally does not reach or does not have that trust with. And just to give this some background, in 2014, the beginning of 2014, I was brought in as an influencer for IBM. And I remember whenever I got the message saying, hey, Brian, we want to bring you in as an influencer and we want to bring you to some events. The first thing I did was Google the word influencer. Because I was like, what the heck is an influencer, right? I didn't set out to be an influencer. Influencer, to me, at the time, I was kind of confused about what that entirely meant. But what I think we're learning, and this is something that I think we're learning across the board, is in this digital world and in the offline world, 3D, online, offline, trust. Trust is extremely important. It's extremely hard to build. And then once you have trust between yourself and an audience, and it doesn't matter how big or how small it is, the question becomes, how do you work with brands? How do you connect with things that you love and inspire people to take action? And this is where I want to focus this initial conversation, right? In 2018, there is no excuse for anyone to call themselves an influencer without having the data to back it up, right? Because here's the thing. You might have a large audience. You might have a large following. But to be an influencer, to be someone that actually influences something, you have to inspire action. Inspire action either through your words, inspire action either through your actions, or inspire action based on the trust that you have, right? For some people, and this is something that I do not take for granted, but I've had people tell me, Brian, I didn't even read your review of a book, but because you told me that this book is worth buying, I went out and bought it immediately, right? That's because they've built up trust with me over a long period of time that they're taking action simply based based on my actions. And I think as an influencer, right, this is an interesting space because in the digital world, there's things like tagging your links. There's such things as Google Analytics. There's understanding of advertising. There's understanding of your role as an influencer. And I don't believe there's any excuse for anyone to not be able to tell that story. And I go into that